As usual, let us start with a prayer. योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योगाकरोत्तत्प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिमानतोऽस्मि. We salute Maharshi Patanjali, who is a great master of yoga, by which we can detoxify the mind, and also a master of Ayurveda, by which you can detoxify the body, and a master of Sanskrit language, by which we can purify the prana. So the body, prana and mind. All the three aspects of our life can be purified, detoxified by practicing yoga, chanting mantra, and following the Ayurveda regime. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay. So last talk, we were dealing with the goals of yoga. What is the goal of yoga? Because unless we know the goal, we will not be sufficiently incentivized to practice yoga. Because we are investing at least 45 minutes every day. So we need sufficient incentives, without which we will not be putting that effort. So we should know the goal of yoga. What is the goal of yoga? We have seen from suffering dukkha to sukha. A space, limited space, from a limited space to a limitless space of infinite opportunities, possibilities, unfolding our inner potential in million and one ways. That's the meaning of having that space. Which is the meaning of happiness. When you are happy, you are very creative, aren't you? When you are unhappy, you are very destructive. And happiness is our innate nature. We have seen all this several times. Don't look to the outer world for happiness. Look inside, inward, by detaching, observing, non-judgmental observation. Then you will be able to move and dive deep into your own inner self. From there, we can deal with the world in a most efficient and creative way. So, the goal has been described as from migrating from that limited, suffocating field of dukkha to the limitless, inspiring field of sukha. And I'll be explaining what dukkha, sukha and all that. Another description by Patanjali was Purusha Khyadi, knowing oneself. Who am I? I know everything about the world, but I know very little about myself. I am a scholar about the world, but I am an utterly ignorant. I am an ignoramus about myself. And nobody can tell you who you are except yourself. Not a Freud or a Marx or any such people. You alone can discover, no. You alone can authenticate, present yourself. Nobody else. And that has to happen every moment in life. It is not a one-time task. Every moment in your life, you have to announce who you are, what you are, your happiness. This is called Purusha Ghyati or Pratyak Chedana Adhigamam, another word used by Patanjali. Pratyak Chedana, your deepermost self, which is consciousness Chedana. You are not a machine. You are a person, indivisible person, an individual. Pratyak Chedana. Nobody can objectify you. You alone can express yourself. And that expression can be in infinite ways. No photograph can take a photo of yourself. There is no other way to access you, accept yourself. So that is a pratyak. Pratyak means the deepermost, chedanadhigamam. Another word used by Patanjali is samadhi. What is the goal of yoga? Samadhi. The ability to handle your mind, balancing your mind. You don't react to this ever-changing environment. You are not a slave of your environment, but you are a master. You choose your responses with the total understanding of who you are. That's called samadhi. Samadhi, where the mind is balanced all the time. Even if somebody calls you a donkey, I told you last time, you are not going to kick him by the hind leg and prove he is right. You are not going to do that. You choose your response, which is a great skill. These days they call it emotional intelligence, an ability to restrain your responses and measure it and then express it, which will go a long way in making your life a happy life. So, samadhi. Another word used by Patanjali is kaivalyam. I'm just repeating whatever I said last time, in case you forget it. Because this goal perception is very important. It should be always in your mind. Every day when you do yoga. Another word used by Patanjali is kaivalyam. Kaivalya is kevalada, oneness. You experience yourself as one single conflict-free entity. So in that oneness, you include everything. Nothing is excluded. You, your environment, the flora, the fauna, the stars, you can go back and forth. Nothing is, because we exist as a holistic unit. That kind of, I would call it a loving relationship with everything. A loving. A loving means receiving and giving, receiving and giving, receiving and giving, or giving and receiving. It's a complex web. Everything is interdependent. And their interdependence is glued by the energy of love and consciousness. So all those things. So this is the goal we have seen. So samadhi, kaivalyam, purushagyadi. Another word used by Patanjali is krudarthada. Krudam artham yena. Where you feel I have arrived. There's a poem that woods are lovely, dark and deep, and might to go before I sleep. But here, I have already arrived. And from that platform, you can do whatever you do, it will become a play, not a war. Once you have that, I have, right, that feeling comes. I am fulfilled. Kritartha. That feeling comes. You are not in a hurry of doing things. You are slow, steady, very circumspect in all your activities. So that is Kritartha. So this is the goal. All mean the same thing, but put in a different language from different angles and perspectives. Then I also talked about the minimal yoga, because yoga is a huge forest. Most of the time we forget we ignore the trees because of the forest, individual trees. So in your busy schedule, you don't have the time to read all those texts, to practice all those discipline that you have enumerated in the yogic text. So can you give me a minimal for a package for my daily practice? So that also I have given you last time, Surya Namaskar. That 12 steps, Surya Namaskar, with its own mantras. Surya Namaskar. And then Anulom Vilom Pranaya. With the Kumbhagas, you take breath, hold it, then breathe out. Simple. Anybody can do that. With the great effect also, Anulom Vilom, with the Kumbhagas. And then chant a mantra. Different religions have their own mantras. We have mantras, Om Namah Shivaya, or Christian religion, Muslim religion, they have their own mantra, La ilaha illallah. That's a mantra you can chant. If you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, Lord Jesus, pardon me, blah, blah, all those mantras are there. So those mantras you can chant, that will create a positive energy. And then, so pranayama, mantra, Surya Namaskar, and then what you call samyama. Samyama means organizing your mind, focusing your mind. Try to focus on something which inspires. Otherwise, life, is like miserable. There is nothing to focus, no purpose, no meaning, no interest. It becomes something which interests you, which creates goosebumps in you when you think about that. At least play with your grandchildren. That itself is a samyama, grandchildren. Play with them. Amuse yourself. Or cook for a change. Let your wife take a rest. You cook. It's a great experience. Or sweep the floor for a change. Something which is exciting and interesting and useful also. That's very important. Something which is useful. Something which you can create a value. So samyama. Samyama also can be on your own nature. What's my nature? So samyama or concentration practices. And then finally, Shavasana. Lie on your back, totally relaxed, as though you are dead. Not dead, as though. Please don't misunderstand me. As though you are dead. You just lie down, completely surrendering to the universe. Complete surrender. Occasionally don't open your eyes and see what's happening. Sometimes you feel mosquitoes are landing on your nose. Sometimes you feel ants are crawling over you. These are all just your feelings. Sometimes you feel phone is ringing. Don't jump out of Shavasana. Just totally relax. Rigor mortis, as Ramana Maharshi says. Rigor mortis, as though you're completely dead, totally relaxed. Shavasana. If you can do this couple of things, I think you have done justice to yoga. So that is the minimalist yoga. Then as you progress, you can learn, study many books I have told you, and you can practice complicated asanas, Kukudasana, Mayurasana, this asana, all the asanas you can do practices if you have the time, all the time in the world. There are people who spend all their time doing yogasana, resting and eating right kind of food all the time. They are great masters from whom they are experimental scientists. I don't recommend you to do that. This is minimal yoga. If you do, finally you can lead a healthy life. So finally, the purpose of yoga is Sarube Avasthanam, to abide in yourself comfortably, which is called health. So I feel healthy, I feel light, and I can see the light also. Let me put it that way. So this is the minimalist yoga and the goals of yoga. And when Patanjali talks about this, he also is mindful of, with this yoga mindset, how do you relate with the world? What happened to the world when you are deeply abiding in yourself, when the mind is quiet? Patanjali uses some phrases which I would like to share with you. I am picking up sutras from here and there. That is not in a Patanjali sequence. I am picking up and then threading it to create a narrative, I told you. So Patanjali says, when you are deeply abiding in yourself, you experience guna vaidrishnyam. Guna vaidrishnyam. What does that mean? Guna vaidrishnyam. See, according to Patanjali or Sankhya or Vedanta, these are the three philosophies that we are discussing. The world is made up of three gunas. We all know that. Whether it is the world outside or your mind. The mind is made up of three. Mind means body, mind, ego complex is made up of three gunas, and the world outside is also is made up of three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Reflectivity, activity and passivity. Three kind of energy. So, this guna, their permutation and combination, this guna has got two stages, the samya and vishama. Vishama means a disturbed state. In a disturbed state, this guna appear as the world. It's a big statement. You have to reflect on this. It's a big statement I made. When the gunas are disturbed, then this whole world appears. And when they are quiet, then the world goes to a state of sleep. That is the big bang and the big crunch. The guna disturbed. Then the big bang, the world manifests. Then the gunas become quiet. So according to Patanjali, when you are abiding in yourself, you can see the truth that the world is nothing but made up of these three gunas. So you are able to go deep into that. That is the meaning of guna vaidrishnyam. And also, you are able to play with the gunas. Gunas means your mind and your environment. You become a master of your mind and your environment rather than living as a slave of your mind and environment. So that is the meaning of guna vaidrishnyam. Another word used by Patanjali is Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam Pratiprasavaha Kaivalyam. He says, when you are in that state, then Pratiprasavaha Gunanam. Gunas go back to its source. Again the same thing. You are able to see that these gunas create the world for your experiences. Just the three gunas. And when you know these are the three gunas, which is the fundamental building block of the universe, you will be able to gain mastery over them. So gunanam pratiprasava. You can see how the gunas manifest and how they unmanifest. The whole circus can be experienced by. That's why gunanam pratiprasavaha kaivalyam. And if you bring the Vedantic understanding into this, There are two understandings can be brought into this statement of Patanjali. One is the Sankhyan, dualistic understanding. The other is Vedantic understanding. According to dualistic understanding is, when the yogi is in that state of Samadhi, the world completely comes to a stop for him. And he withdraws into his own inner cave. That's one understanding. And I won't appreciate that personally. I would like to have a Vedantic interpretation. The Vedantic interpretation is, the world is an expression of the spirit. The spirit is not separate from the world. Because Patanjali's philosophy, like Sankhya, is a dualistic philosophy. I don't want to torture you with all these philosophical ambiguities. So, let me present to you what it is. So, when you are in that state, you become a master of the world. Not that you will completely withdraw into the inner cave, but you are able to integrate the entire universe, your environment, your mind into yourself. It's something like this. Let me tell you. Suppose you are driving a car. Car is a very complicated machinery, isn't it? Very complicated. And there is a road on which the car is moving, and there are people around, animals jumping across, pothole, manholes if we are driving in India. There are a lot of things you have to be careful about. So initially when you drive, driving is a chore, isn't it? Instead of putting the brake, you press on the accelerator. All those things can happen. But slowly but steadily, a situation comes, you become an adept in driving. Then there is no car, there is no road, there is no you, there is only an experience of driving, isn't it? Everything is forgotten. Otherwise, initially, it's a big problem. You have to look into the rear view mirror, you have to look into the front mirror, this mirror, that mirror, all kind of problem. And you are sweating. But when you are an expert driver, the car disappears. The road disappears. Everything disappears. You disappear. What is there is the sheer blissful experience of driving. Similarly, cooking. Similarly, music. The guitar. Initially, you hurt your fingers. And the guitar is a heavy instrument. Later, it sits lightly on your shoulder or in your hand. And when you play on this, guitar disappears, you disappear, audience disappear. What is there is a sea of sizzling music, isn't it? Nothing else is there. This is the meaning of when you gain that depth, spiritual depth, then the whole universe is integrated into this. And you live in timelessness. That's the meaning of when Patanjali says, Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam. When you are no more seeking anything from the world, but you are ready to give everything to the world because you are so rich inside, the world is no more a burden for you. You integrate the world into your self. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. As Shankara or the Upanishad says. So, this is how we have to understand Gunanam Pratiprasava. Otherwise, you may think a yogi is a dullard sitting in a corner doing nothing. Yogi is supremely active. He is not sitting there like a dead wood. He is a dynamically dancing peacock, let us say. That's our understanding of the yogi. So another Kridartham Pradi Nashtamabhi. So Kridartha, when you are an accomplished person, the world disappears for you. Nashta. What does it mean? World disappears. The world is not a painful experience for you. isn't it? When you are in the initial stages of love, she is 18, you are 20, and you are deeply involved in your love. You forget yourself, she forgets herself, and you don't know where you are sitting. Everything is forgotten. There is only a flame of love enveloping the whole universe, isn't it? But after marriage, after matrimony, begins the acrimony, as they say. And thereafter, everything is so painful, so heavy, so concrete, and so monstrous to you, isn't it? So such experiences are possible, where the time is simply sucked out, and all contradictions are disappear, and there is only one flame of blissful experience. That is the meaning of Kridartham Babhinashtamabhi. For you, when you are in that state of joy, there is no world which is sitting on your head. There is no other. There is only a flame of transcendental, timeless experience. This is how we have to understand. Otherwise, we will misunderstand Patanjali and misinterpret Patanjali. So, one should know the real meaning of the state. Another word phrase used to Patanjali, Guna Vaidrishnyam. Guna Vaidrishnya means Trishna, Vaidrishnyam. There is no attachment to these gunas. Just as you are not attached to a car. A car is an instrument, isn't it? To reach your destination. Once you reach your destination, you don't take the car to your bedroom. You don't do that. And some people do that. The car is a new car. Every day in the morning you get up and look through the window. Is the car in there? If somebody scratched the car, was it deflated? But when the car is little old and you know that, Gunavaidrishnyam, you know. So it is only an instrument to serve a certain purpose. When the purpose is over, then you are detached. And with that attitude, when you deal, everything becomes beautiful. Everything becomes experience of bliss. Every relationship is an experience of bliss. So this is what at today's talk I have captioned as the structure of dukkha, suffering. And we all are suffering in one way or other. Old age is suffering. You don't want to be old, do you? Do anyone of you want to be old? You don't. Disease, suffering, whether physical or psychological. Loneliness, when nobody appreciates you, nobody to talk with, nobody to fight with. That is dukkha. So there are many reasons why you are suffering, but the fact is, all of us are suffering. All of us are suffering, and all of us are in discomfort by one reason or other. It can be, reason can be varied and many, but the final experience is, I am suffering, I am not comfortable, I am not okay. So, a lot of unpleasantness in our life. So this state is called dukkha. You feel hemmed in. You feel you cannot move. You feel you are tied by several strings. You feel your freedom is compromised. And of course, this great abyss of death which is staring at you. Ultimately, I have to jump into that. So whatever may be the reason, we are suffering. So Buddha encapsulated this experience. This is our existential experience. This is our condition. You cannot ignore it. We are suffering. Maybe many reasons. If I ask you why are you suffering, you may give me one reason. Another person, another reason. But the fact is that, and confronting this is very important. Otherwise, we will be running away from it. The more you run away, it's like your shadow. It will follow you. So let's not try to run away from our experience of suffering. Let us confront it. Confronted means look at it. That's the meaning of confrontation. Let us look at that. Let us accept it. Let us see it for whatever it is. So this dukkha which we are going through, this feeling of suffocation, I want to break out of that. So this recognition is very important, like Arjuna did in Bhagavad Gita. Karpanya dosho bhagata subhavaha. Prichami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I feel I am stuck, bored, suffering. I cannot get out of this situation. So we have to sit down and reflect on this existential crisis, as they say. I am suffering. I feel uncomfortable. I feel several arrows are piercing my body, like Christ on the cross, let us say, or Bhishma on the Shavasana. That's what I am feeling. So Buddha said, Dukkham Dukkham Sarvatra. This is what I see. I see everybody is suffering, the rich and the poor, the white and the black, Indians and Americans, man and woman, children. Everybody is suffering one way or other. That's our experience. And finally we die. So, Dukkham Dukkham Sarvatra, said Buddha. And the Bhagavad Gita also says, Dukkhalayam Shashvatam. This world is a Dukkhalayam, is a house of suffering. Dukkha, Alayam. Alayam means a house. This world. Bhagavad Gita. And that's our experience also. Dukkham Dukkham Sarvatra. And then Patanjali himself says, very, very beautiful sutra. Patanjali says, Parinama Tapa Samskara Dukkhehi Gunavrutti Virodhacha Dukkhameva Sarvam Viveginaha. Very cynical and pessimistic, isn't it? Just now you said I am happiness and all that. Now you are taking me to a different place. No, I'm not taking you to different. I'm trying to drag you from where you are already. So Patanjali says, why dukkha? Because we all are searching for happiness. That is the source of dukkha, isn't it? We all are searching for happiness and which you never get. You thought after getting your degree from MIT from US, you will be happy. After getting MIT, are you happy now? Then got a job, are you happy now? Got a promotion, are you happy now? Married, are you happy? Children, happy? Grandchildren? Then what's your problem? When are you going to be happy? So we are trying to become happy. Happiness is pushed into the future. And you are looking outward. So this search for happiness itself is the source of dukkha anyway. And can you stop this search? You cannot. You cannot. Because you are something deep within you says, this is not your fate. Your fate is something different. Right? So at the presently what we do, we search for happiness and we get something interesting. And temporarily we are happy. Again you are unhappy. So Patanjali says, Parinamam, everything changes. Parinam. When things change, we feel unsettled. Oh, when I married her, she was so sweet. Now she is so bitter. How does it happen? You don't know how it did happen. Change, totally change. Totally change. Change is the nature of the world. You better roll with that. If you don't, then change will, like a juggernaut, will crush you under its heavy wheels. So things change. Accept it. So parinamam, but we don't. So suffering comes. Then tabam, cost. Every pleasure has got a cost, isn't it? Everything has got a cost. When you go to Las Vegas, have a fun there. When you come back, the bill also has come. Everything has got a cost. There is nothing without no free lunch. Parinama taba. Samskaram, then it creates a habit in you. You become addicted to that. When you're addicted, then there is less happiness from that. Same thing, which gives you goosebumps, now it's no more. Isn't it? Habits are created. When it becomes a habit, then it becomes mechanical, no joy in it. Same thing. Then gunavrutti virodhascha. And then there are different things trying for your attention. If you take this, you miss something else. Now you are listening to the lectures, but then your favorite TV program is going on. Isn't it? You have to make a choice. To choose A means losing B, which is very painful. You wanted both. You want to see your favorite TV program and listen to the lecture also. No, not possible, sir. You have to make a choice, which is painful. As a result of that, everything is, Patanjali's conclusion is, everything is painful. Very cynical, very depressing conclusion, isn't it? But that is the fact of life. Because you are looking at the wrong place. You are barking at the wrong tree. You are looking at the wrong place for your happiness. That is why it gives you some temporary pleasure. Then you get the beating later. So therefore, what should I do is the question. So we understood that, and some people say, I don't deserve this suffering. I don't deserve it. What did I do? In the Ayurveda literature, they say, Purva Janma Kritam Papam Adhirubena Jayate. Something you did in the past, which is creating this suffering. But you say, what did I do? I didn't do anything. This little baby who is suffering, he didn't do anything. Purva Janma Kritam Papam. Then the question is that why did I do such actions in the past? Why did I do that? That's not an answer. It is only pushing the question little backward. That's it. So therefore, how do I get out of that dukkha? Because something in me says, I have to get out of that. I have to get out of this suffering. Maybe modern science, technology, and all that will remove my suffering. No way. The more technology progresses, the more different ways of suffering comes. Technology can give you some comforts, of course. But comforts need not guarantee happiness. Comfortably, you can be unhappy. Therefore, don't look for the technological solutions to your inner problem. Technology is good, necessary. I don't say it is not necessary. Plumbing, electricity, transportation, everything is good. I don't say it's not necessary. But that will not guarantee this, what we are seeking, this freedom. Actually, the scare is more technological progress, more artificial intelligence, more unfreedom. That is what they are predicting. Because somebody sitting in Beijing or Washington can control even your emotions. So therefore, let's not look for technology to solve our problem. What can solve our problem is self-knowledge. Self-knowledge alone can solve your problem. So at this point, let us admit that we are living in fear, tremendous stress, distress, unhappiness, whether we are able to articulate it or not. And of course, there are several distractions to ignore or ignore this unhappiness. There are several distractions, entertainments also. Put a kind of band-aid over your suffering, but deep down, it's like I'd say it's a rotten tooth. You can put a silver or a gold coating around it, and when you smile, there's a golden glint in your smile, isn't it? But you know that you are suffering inside. So this kind of paper band-aid is not going to help us. We have to admit it, and look into the root cause, the structure of suffering. Where does it come from? What is the root cause? Unless you understand the structure, the process, the structure, and the root of suffering, we will not be able to solve it. Because technology, science has not solved our suffering. Science has only increased our comforts. That's not enough. You can live under a tree, Kaubi Navanda, Kalubhagyavanda, as Shankara says. You can live under a tree with a loin cloth and still be happy. You can live in a marbled palace with all kind of chandeliers and servants and still you can be unhappy. So what is the structure and the root of suffering? Very interesting. So this is called the diagnosis. Unless you diagnose the problem, you will not be able to give you a solution, isn't it? Have you thought about it? What is the root of suffering? Now Patanjali says the root of suffering is avidya. Self-ignorance. Oh, this I heard several times, isn't it? Many times I have heard it, but it's worth hearing again. Avidya is the root of suffering. But what do you mean? I am a great scholar. I have written 1,000 books. And I am the head of dean of department of my department. How can you say I am ignorant? Avidya. Patanjali says, all of us are suffering from a basic ignorance. Actually, we are operating in a field of ignorance. You can call it ignorance, you can call it maya, you can call it mithya, you can call it dukkha. Whatever word you, all are the same meaning. Avidya, maya, mithya, dukkha. We are operating in that limited field. And in that limited field, with that limited, you can also call it a biological limitation. A biological limit. That's a biological limit in which we are operating. Our sense organs are limited, our mind is limited, memory is limited. And our whole idea about ourselves is limited. So we are operating in that. Avidya. Now, what is the avidya you are talking about? Or ignorance we are talking. Ignorance means ignore, isn't it? Ignore. Ignorance means ignore. Ignoring the whole and focusing on one limited aspect of the whole. You see the tree, but you don't see the forest. Sometimes you see the forest, you don't see the tree. So what is this avidya we are talking about? Now let me quote Patanjali. Patanjali says, Anitya Ashuji Dukkha Anatmasu Nitya Shuji Sukha Atma Khyadi. Khyadi means perception. Perception. The perception that you, I, because you indicate by the word I, to refer yourself, what do you say? I. When you say I, what is the content of that I experience? The content of the I experience is Anityam. I am a mortal. Ashuji. I am a sinner. Dukkham. I am suffering. Isn't it? Anitya. Mortal. Limited. Mortal means limited. I am a limited person. Then, Anitya Ashuji. I am dirty, I am ugly, I don't know anything, I am a sinner. I have done all kind of wrong things. And you are ruminating over that all the time. And the more you ruminate, the more you do it. This is called law of the reverse effect. If you want to avoid something, you continue to do it. So, Anitya, Ashuji, Dukkha. Dukkha means miserable. Anatma. Anatma means I am an object. I am an object. Everybody is looking at me. Everybody is judging me. Everybody is condemning me. You become an object of gaze by others. Isn't it? Or when you look at the mirror, what do you see? In the wrinkles and the bald head, that's what you are seeing, nothing else. And one or two teeth also lost. That's what you are seeing. So you feel you are objectified, you are gazed at by others. And which is very uncomfortable. You feel the whole world is judging you. So this way, anitya, ashuji, dukkha, anatma. Anatma means an object looked at, judged by others, including your wife and children and grandchildren. Sometimes grandchildren call you Papa, Grandpa. You are a stupid. You're stupid. Because you are not able to, play with that remote control. And your 3-year-old is very comfortable with that. So you feel you are judged all the time. Of course, your wife judges you all the time. You judge your wife also all the time. Your servant continuously judges you. Because she is silently watching what you are doing. Isn't it? This is your understanding about yourself. Whereas Patanjali says, between you and I tell you the truth. You are not this. Do you ever know that? Do you ever know that? You are not this. You are leading a deluded life. A deluded, stupidly deluded life. What is your nature? Exactly the opposite. When you look at the mirror, your right ear is seen as left ear. If you write with the right hand, you feel as though you are writing with the left hand, isn't it? Your nature is exactly the opposite, it says. Which is a great revelation to us. I never knew this. What is my nature? My nature is Nitya Shuji Sukha Atma Kyadi. My nature is, I am immortal, I am fearless, Nitya. Keep on repeating it. As I say, when you fake it, you will make it, isn't it? So keep on repeating it. My nature is Nitya. Whenever that thought comes, I am a limited person, immediately you have to remove that thought. You have to counteract. Remove that thought by another thought. Because these are all thoughts. Unanalyzed thoughts. So you have to tell yourself, unless you do this fundamentally, no kind of practice will happen. Because all these practices are done in the state of ignorance. It will only confirm your ignorance. Unless you make this fundamental shift, there is no salvation, there is no hope for us. So, Nitya, Shuji, Sukha, Atma Gyadi. This is what you have to gain, but we are not able to do that. We still, old habits. It's very difficult to teach the old dog new habits. Don't we say that? So similarly, it is not striking us. We don't feel this is true. Because we have been so much brainwashed by our biological evolution. We are not able to understand this. But it's time for us to understand this very deeply. Meditate on this. Whenever such a thought comes, say, I am boundless. I am not bounded. Nitya. Then Shuji, I am pure. I am pure. Nothing has made me impure. So whenever that thought comes, I am impure, I am a sinner, I am dirty, I am filthy. You have to do that. Because the whole world may say it, but don't buy into that. So Nitya, Shuji, Sukha, Atma. This is me. But there is an inversion that has happened in understanding. Instead of knowing yourself as this immortal self, we are taking ourselves to be a mortal, limited, miserable self. This is the mistake we have done, and from there, everything is like a sobhana kandugavadu. Like a ball falling from a height, it will go down, 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 down like that. Because we have taken a wrong step. After taking a wrong step, wrong exit, you may drive very efficiently, as I told you. Isn't it? You are not going to reach anywhere. So that wrong step, that is what we have to confront. That's what we say, confronting this notion that I am unhappy and I have to gain happiness. I am mortal. I have to some or other, taking medicines or that become immortal. So that is avidya. Now Patanjali also says, all our activities are based on this wrong notion. In a very beautiful sutra, Patanjali says, avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udaranam, he says. Avidya kshetram, this is the field in which, the field of ignorance, all that we do. All our cognitions happen in this. All our knowledge-making activities happen in the field of ignorance. All the knowledge we have, whether it is sociological or scientific, whatever knowledge, technological, all of them have been created, manufactured within this field of ignorance. So sometimes we jokingly say, all our knowledge is organized ignorance. That's it. That's it. It has not brought us any happiness. It has brought us only power. Power to control and exploit nature and the other human being, other cultures, to destroy other cultures. It has not given us any power. It has not given us any joy. It has given us power to destroy. Destroy nature. Destroy other human beings. Destroy other cultures. Destroy other languages. That's all what happened. It has not given us the final solution. So, avidya. And from avidya comes, Patanjali calls it kleshas. Kleshas. This dukkha also can be called klesha. You'll see that word. Klesha, avidya, andaraya, another word he uses. Andaraya. Andaraya means this kind of activity lead to all kind of psychological problems, ecological problems. I'll be coming to what are the andarayas next talk. So andarayas, kleshas. Now we are dealing with the klesha aspect, the structure of suffering. So it begins with this lack of self-understanding, lack of self-reflection. And from there comes asmida. Asmida means a false identity you develop. So somebody asks you, how are you, sir? Not so good. Not so good. What happened? You know what happened. Don't tease me. You know what happened. It all is now in the newspaper or in the social media. What happened to me, and you are just teasing me. Isn't it? So, not so good. I'm not so happy. So you develop a false identity based on this false understanding about yourself, which Patanjali called asmida. Asmida means a false self-identity. And Patanjali defines that asmida. Drik darshana shaktiyoho egatmada. You identify the darshana shakti. You identify with the mind and the body and the sense organ. You identify the tools and the technology. You forget the tool maker, the tool user. You identify with the tool, which is called darshana shakti. So darshana shakti, how do you perceive the world? Using the sense organ, the mind, the intellect, the memory, everything is used to experience the world and process the world and create knowledge. So we identify with the technology, the tools, and forget the tool maker and the tool user, and for what purpose is the tool is used. Everything is forgotten. So Patanjali uses that Darshana Shaktiyoha Egatmada. And then from there, all the problems start. So you are defined by the tool that you are using. If you are driving a BMW car, what is your identity? I am a big man. If you are using an ordinary 800 Maruti car, you are a useless person. You have a house in high-end area, great place, then you are a big man. The tool defines you. What a tragedy. The tool defines you. So Patanjali says, Darshana Shaktiyo Egatmada. Drishta Drishyoho Samyogaha. And not only that, as a result of that, there is utter confusion between the drishtra, the seer, the perceiver, and the instruments of perception that you use. Utter confusion. And you lost your identity. And you are identified with these tools. That's what is happening. You have to analyze all this. When you lose your eyesight, you're not able to see your eyes, you become blind. You say, I am a blind man. No. You are able to know that you are blind, isn't it? I mean, if you keep on meditating. Okay, we'll come to that later. So he says, so this is the tragedy which has happened. And then what happened? When you are a limited person, deep down, you want to be happy. But you are convinced yourself you are unhappy. And you are not able to accept that situation. And then you want to seek happiness. And when you want to seek happiness, then you try to grab things. You don't want to share. That's why you get grasping. You want to grab things. Any straw on the camel's back is enough for you. You want to grab something. Versus aggrandizement, violence, grabbing, consumerist culture. The more you consume, the happier you are. So Patanjali calls it Raga Dvesha Abhinivesha. And finally, you keep on grabbing things and that thing grabs you and you are in a suicidal pact now. I told you a story. This man was meditating on the bank of a river and he felt cold and he said, God, give me a kambal. Kambal means a shawl. Then he saw a kambal is floating down the river. And he jumped into the river, grabbed the kambal in great satisfaction. Then he found the kambal is grabbing him. Kambal means a shawl. Because that was a black bear. The bear will not leave you. Isn't it? So you grab, and what you grab grabs you, and you are in a suicidal pact. No. You cannot get out. You want, but you can't. So Patanjali calls it abhinivesham, extreme attachment to things, extreme hatred for some other thing. You create your own clique and clan and tribe and then fight with others. That is our situation. So we are operating in the field of ignorance. And it is from that, in that field, you create all your cognitive activities take place there. In this dualistic space. Then I'll create a division between I and thou, I and it. That's the kind of division we create, and then I try to know that. Have you known yourself? No. I want to know that. I want to know this. I want to know him or her. So all these cognitive activities or knowledge creating activities take place in this space of ignorance. It's time for us to think deeply on all this. Because for the last 500 years, we walked a long distance in creating this objective knowledge, ignoring the subject. And the chickens are coming home to roost now. Now we understand we lost our bearings and moorings. We walked a long distance, very successfully, on the wrong direction. It's time for us to correct this defect, this distortion in our understanding. So whether you create knowledge, whether you spread that knowledge, all that you are doing in a state of ignorance. Shankara calls it the mithya space. So can I do something about it? What should I do? Should I stop all these activities? No, you should not. You should not stop all these activities. All these pursuits are important, provided you know who you are. If you don't know who you are, you will be crushed, you will be under debris of all this. So I'm not saying that Patanjali does not say stop all these activities. These are all very important, provided you know who you are. So how do I get out of this field of ignorance and then deal with this? Then how do I do that? That is the question we will be dealing in the next lecture. What should I do? Because I cannot ignore this world. I cannot ignore the progress of science. I cannot ignore the progress of knowledge, objective knowledge. Objective knowledge is important. We don't say no. At the same time, how do I have the subjective understanding? How do I harmonize these two? Otherwise, it will be a bird trying to fly with the one wing. If it flaps one wing, it will go round and round and round and round, which is happening now. So how do I get up? Heyam, dukkham, anagadam. So how do I get out of this kind of a catch-22 situation? How do I do that? So Patanjali says, and so the knowledge, now I also would like to talk a little bit about the knowledge creation method. How do you do that? Does an experience happen? Here is an object, like a pot or a tree or a table. How do I know this is a table? How do I know that? How do I know what I know is the real knowledge? It's a big philosophical question. How do I know this is a table which I am seeing? In a simple way, Patanjali explained, this Vishaya, this object, create a ripple in your mind. Or a wave in the brain, let us say. That particular object, in its proximity, contact, which is within the visual field or your field of experience, and creates a ripple in your mind. Mind is like water, very flexible, very plastic. That ripple is called a vritti. Patanjali used the word the vritti. Every object, because constantly we are interacting with the world through all the five sense organs. Whether you are seeing a thing, touching something, tasting something, hearing something, all of them create ripples in the mind, modes in the mind. Like when you throw a stone in water, it creates ripples. Similarly, it creates ripples in the mind. So mind is like a photograph film which gets the picture of the object. But how that vritti become an experience? That's the question which we are not able to answer. How does that vritti become a subjective experience that I see a pot? How can you say that? I see a pot. I see a tree. I see my son. I see my grandson. I am reading this book. How does that experience come? I understand it creates vrittis, disturbances in the brain and all that. How does it become a subjective experience? Nobody has any answer. So Patanjali says it becomes a subjective experience because of the consciousness. So these vrittis shine in the light of consciousness. And consciousness is subjective. So when the vrittis shine in the light of consciousness, you say, I see a pot, I hear music, I taste food. So Patanjali brings three things for any cognitive experience. An object, mind, sense organs, and consciousness. So consciousness is not a product of brain processes. Consciousness is independent data, according to Patanjali. So when the consciousness illumines the vritti in the contact with an object, mind comes into contact with an object, vritti is generated, which is illumined in consciousness, then you get a pratyaya. Pratyaya means a piece of experience. I see, I touch, I smell. That's how he explains it. Otherwise, there is no way of explaining the subjective experience. That's why machine doesn't experience. He can solve your problem, but machine has an experience. Machine doesn't jump in joy when a problem is solved. If it jumps, then you should be really scary, isn't it? My computer jumps out of joy. That doesn't happen. So therefore, the Vishaya means the objective world, vritti, the mental mode, and consciousness, Chetana, create a experience, a cognition. But all these cognitions are experienced by the limited individual. And you cannot help this. That's how experiences happen. Because in the highest state, there is no experience of the other. There is only an experience of an integral experience of oneness, of joy, of peace, of harmony. We'll be coming to that later. So at this point, let us understand how experiences happen. Now Patanjali says, now let us understand this vritti. Understand this vritti. Because the world experience has vrittis. Otherwise, you don't know whether there is a table or not. How do you know there is a table? Because it creates a vritti in your mind. Otherwise, there is no way of knowing. There is a big philosophical question. How do you know there is a table? It creates a vritti in you. So Patanjali is focusing on this phenomena is called vritti. So his second sutra is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is looking at the Chitta Vritti, observing the Chitta Vritti, understanding its structure, which we will see next time. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So next talk will be yoga is looking at the vritti or managing the mind management, or looking at the vritti and looking around the vritti, going inside the vritti. So because that's all what you know. Consciousness, we have to really do hard work. And the world, you don't know whether it is there or not, other than what you experience. So let us catch hold of this vritti and look at this. So the second sutra, Patanjali says, first sutra is Adhado Yoga Anushasana. Now let us study yoga. Now let us give an instruction on yoga. First sutra. That's how Patanjali begins. Second sutra is, therefore, now let us look into this vritti. Why vritti? Because the world is vritti. Consciousness, we don't know. You will never know consciousness. Why? Because you are consciousness, my son. Never try to look and measure and cut and paste and sell and commodify consciousness. Not possible. Consciousness is not an instrument. So therefore, only the vritti we can look at, and that's what we are going to do. The next lecture, looking at the vritti or mind. So thank you very much. Hari Om. Hari Om.